You know the legend. Light my fire, the leather pants, the Lizard King. But you don't know this. His father was a senior commander during the Gulf of Tonkin period, right as Vietnam escalated. He claimed his parents were dead. He was convicted of indecent exposure where 28 cops and 100 photographs couldn't prove it happened. He was maced backstage, arrested on stage. His girlfriend found him dead in Paris. A sealed coffin, no autopsy. She died 3 years later at age 27, a needle beside her body. In October 1970, Morrison told friends, "You're drinking with number 3. The core of this is documented, and the rest is where the mystery starts. This is Jim Morrison's real story. Number 1. His father was a senior commander during the Gulf of Tonkin incident. On August 2nd, 1964, Admiral George Stephen Morrison was a senior commander of Carrier Division 5 aboard the USS Bonhomme Richard during the Gulf of Tonkin incident, the event that pushed America into full-scale war in Vietnam. 7 months earlier, a photograph captured 20-year-old Jim Morrison standing on his father's ship bridge. The son of a high-ranking naval officer during the incident that triggered the war, became the voice of the generation that protested it. When the Doors achieved fame in 1967, Jim told interviewers his parents were dead. Elektra Records published it as fact. His father, rising through naval command to rear admiral, was officially deceased to rock fans. Morrison later admitted to Rolling Stone, "I guess I said my parents were dead as some kind of joke. I just didn't want to involve them." Father and son never spoke again, except for one brief congratulatory phone call after the Doors' debut album. During Morrison's Miami trial, a letter from Admiral Morrison surfaced. He had strongly advised him to give up any idea of singing or any connection with a music group because of what I considered to be a complete lack of talent in this direction. The Admiral told his son he had no musical ability. That son became one of the most iconic voices in rock history, while telling the world his father was dead. Number 2. Miami 1969. 28. Cops, 100 photographs, 0 proof. March 1st, 1969 at Dinner Key Auditorium, destroyed the Doors' touring career. But the documented facts contradict the legend. Morrison arrived hours late after fighting with Pamela, drinking heavily, at the airport, on the flight, and during a New Orleans layover. The converted seaplane hangar was dangerously oversold, between 10,000 and 14,000 people in a space built for 7,000. No air conditioning. The crowd was hostile before Morrison even appeared. What happened next became a matter of legal record. 28 police officers present. Over 100 photographs entered as evidence. 0 arrests made during the show. Not a single photograph showing indecent exposure. The documented facts. Morrison removed his shirt, shouted, "Do you want to see my cock?" fiddled with his belt, poured champagne on the audience, and screamed, "You are all a bunch of fucking idiots." Someone handed him a live lamb on stage. The disputed fact, did he actually expose himself? Trial transcripts tell a very different story. Officer Bernard Sullivan testified Morrison put his hands down his pants, but did not expose himself. Kathleen Vivian, a front row prosecution witness, testified she did not see exposure. All 3 Doors members testified it never happened. Ray Manzarek, it never actually happened. It was mass hypnosis. John Densmore, if Jim had revealed the golden shaft, I would have known. There were hundreds of photographs taken, tons of cops, and no evidence. After a 40-day trial on September 20th, 1970, Morrison was found guilty of indecent exposure, misdemeanor. Open profanity, misdemeanor. He was acquitted of lewd and lascivious behavior, felony. Public drunkenness, sentence, 6 months in jail and a $500 fine. He remained free on $50,000 bond pending appeal. 8 months later, he was dead in Paris. The appeal was never heard. On December 9th, 2010, Florida Governor Charlie Crist issued a posthumous pardon, one day after what would have been Morrison's 67th birthday. The damage was immediate. 26 tour dates canceled. A rally for decency drew 35,000 people. President Richard Nixon sent a congratulatory letter. The Doors never recovered as a touring act. Number 3, The Ed Sullivan Show. We just did The Sullivan Show. September 17th, 1967. CBS producers told the Doors to change the lyric. Girl, we couldn't get much higher. 2. Girl, there's nothing I require. In Light My Fire, Ed Sullivan himself visited their dressing room. You boys look great. You ought to smile a little more. Producer Bob Preck demanded the lyric change for family television. The Doors agreed. They shook hands. As soon as the producers left, Morrison announced, "We're not changing a word." On live national television, Morrison sang the original lyric, emphasizing higher. The camera caught Robbie Krieger's smirk. Sullivan clapped and mouthed, "That was wonderful," but did not shake Morrison's hand, cutting straight to a Purina dog chow commercial. Backstage, Presh delivered the verdict. Mr. Sullivan wanted you for 6 more shows, but you'll never work the Ed Sullivan Show again. Morrison's response became legend. Hey man, we just did the Sullivan Show. Within months, Light My Fire hit number 1, staying there for 3 weeks. The band didn't hurt them. It turned rebellion into a badge of honor. They didn't need 6 more appearances. The statement was already made. Number 4, New Haven, 1967. Mason, then arrested on stage. December 9th, 1967 at New Haven Arena made Morrison the first rock star ever arrested on stage during a live performance. Before the show, Morrison was making out with a fan. In a backstage shower stall, a security officer who didn't recognize him ordered them to leave. Morrison replied, "Eat it." The officer warned him. Morrison answered, "Last chance to eat it." The officer maced Morrison directly in the face. Morrison was taken to a hospital, delaying the show over 1 hour. When he returned, the officer apologized after realizing he'd maced the lead singer. Morrison took the stage furious. During Backdoor Man, Morrison launched into a rant calling the officer a little blue man in a little blue hat and a little blue pig. He told the crowd, "I'm just like you guys, man. He did it to me. They'll do it to you." Lieutenant James Kelly walked on stage and announced, the show was over. Officers arrested Morrison mid-performance in front of thousands. Road manager Bill Siddons jumped on an officer's back. 13 additional arrests followed. Morrison was charged with lewd performance, breach of peace, resisting arrest. Final resolution, $25. Fine, breach of peace. The incident inspired Peace Frog, 1970. Blood in the streets in the town of New Haven. The photograph of Morrison in handcuffs became one of rock history's most iconic images. Number 5. The night the end was born on a massive LSD trip. August 21st, 1966 was The Doors' final night. As house band at the Whiskey A Go-Go, Morrison didn't show up for the first set. The band found him at the Tropicana Hotel, wearing only underwear and boots, in the middle of what witnesses described as a massive LSD trip. Some accounts claim an extreme dose. They dressed him and brought him back to the Whiskey. During the second set, Morrison performed The End and improvised the Oedipal section for the first time. On stage, in front of a packed crowd, Morrison sang, "Father, I want to kill you. Mother, I want to..." and delivered the explicit sexual line with full profanity. Ray Manzarek remembered, "I thought, oh my God, Jim, don't do it." Once Morrison dropped the line with all the gusto he possibly can, "John and Robbie and I assault our instruments. and the frozen whiskey A Go-Go comes back to life. Club manager Phil Tanzini exploded. "You, Morrison, are the filthiest guy on this planet. You can't say that about your mother. Not on the stage of the Whiskey A Go-Go. You're fired." Robbie Krieger asked if they should finish the weekend. Tanzini replied, "You play the weekend. You're fired on Sunday." The timing was perfect. 3 days earlier, on August 18th, the Doors signed with Elektra Records. Morrison later said, "One Sunday night at Whiskey A Go-Go, something clicked. I realized what the whole song was about, what it had been leading up to. It was powerful. It just happened. They fired us the next day. The Oedipal section stayed in the studio recording. The song that got them fired became one of the most controversial tracks in rock history." Number 6, July 3rd, 1971. No autopsy, sealed coffin, 5 mourners. Jim Morrison was found dead in the bathtub at 17-19 Rue Beautreillis, Paris, by Pamela Courson at approximately 5 to 6 a.m. Blood was visible around his nostrils. Some accounts describe foam and blood tinting the bath water light pink. Pamela's testimony to French authorities stated they had seen a film, eaten at a Chinese restaurant, and returned around 1 a.m. Morrison later woke feeling ill, coughing, vomiting blood. He asked Pamela to run a hot bath. His last words were reported as, "Pam, are you still there?" Or, "Pam, I think I'm drowning." Pamela went to sleep. She found him dead when she woke. The doctor who signed the death certificate was Dr. Max Vasile, though his signature was illegible, and Pamela later claimed she could not remember his name. Official cause of death? Heart failure, possibly from excessive drinking. Under 1971 French law, no autopsy was required unless foul play was suspected. Dr. Vasile reported no evidence of foul play. He refused all interviews for over 50 years and died without ever being publicly questioned. Morrison's body remained in the bathtub for approximately 72 hours, packed in 25 pounds of dry ice. Pamela ordered the cheapest coffin available, costing approximately $75. The coffin was sealed before anyone else could view the body. Critically, Pamela lied to the American embassy, claiming Morrison had no living relatives. This allowed a rapid burial without family involvement. Morrison's parents were not notified until after the burial. Doors manager Bill Siddons arrived on July 6, 3 days after Morrison died. Ray Manzarek had urged him, "Make sure, man, make sure he's in there." But the coffin was already sealed. Siddons never saw the body. Manzarek later said, "How do you even know he was in the coffin? How do you know it wasn't 150 pounds of fucking sand? You buried a sealed coffin, man. We'll never know the real truth now." The funeral on July 7, 1971, at Père Lachaise Cemetery was attended by only 5 people: Pamela Courson, Bill Siddons, Alain Ronay, Agnès Varda, Robin Wertel. No family, no clergy, no service. Bill Siddons later said, "There was no service, and that made it all the better. We just threw some flowers and dirt and said goodbye." The man who told the world his parents were dead was buried without them knowing until it was too late. Number 7, the heroin dealer and Marianne Faithfull's confession. Jean de Breteuil was a French count, known as a heroin dealer to rock stars. He supplied Keith Richards and the Rolling Stone Circle. He was romantically involved with Pamela Courson and Marianne Faithfull. He also helped Pamela find the Paris apartment where Morrison died. In 2014, 43 years later, Marianne Faithfull told Mojo magazine, "I didn't kill Jim Morrison, but I know who did." She continued, "He went to see Jim Morrison and killed him. I'm sure it was an accident. Poor bastard. The smack was too strong? Yeah, and he died." Faithfull revealed she and de Breteuil were in Paris that night. She stayed at their hotel while de Breteuil visited Morrison's apartment. She concluded, "Everybody connected to the death of this poor guy is dead now, except me. Jean de Breteuil died of a heroin overdose. In Morocco, on June 25, 1972, less than 1 year after Morrison, Sam Burnett, founder of the Rock and Roll Circus nightclub, claimed in his 2007 book that Morrison overdosed in the club's bathroom. He alleged dealers carried Morrison's unconscious body back to his apartment and placed him in the bathtub. Did Morrison use heroin? Multiple friends said he hated it and fought with Pamela over her addiction. His documented primary addiction was alcohol, up to 36 beers a day during the LA Woman sessions. But Doors manager Danny Sugerman stated, Pamela told him she had been secretly giving Jim heroin while telling him it was cocaine. Morrison died with blood around his nostrils, no autopsy, and a named dealer 43 years later. Number 8. Pamela Courson, exactly age 27, needle beside her body. 3 years after Morrison died, Pamela Courson was found dead on April 25, 1974, at 108 North Sycamore Avenue, Hollywood. She was exactly 27 years old, the same age as Morrison when he died. Cause of death: heroin overdose. A hypodermic needle was found beside her body. Morrison's February 1969 will named Pamela his sole heir, despite declaring himself an unmarried person. Legal battles delayed execution for nearly 3 years. The estate, valued at approximately $400,000, was settled in early 1974. Pamela had just received a $20,000 royalty payment. She bought a yellow Volkswagen convertible, a monogrammed mink scarf, and, according to some accounts, an ounce of China white heroin. After Morrison's death, Pamela's mental state collapsed. She called herself Mrs. Morrison, sat by the phone waiting for Jim to call, told friends he was still alive. She moved into the Alta Shenega Motel, the same place where Janis Joplin had died. Friends described her as paranoid, depressed, and heavily addicted. Her parents wanted her buried with Jim at Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris. This intention was even listed on her death certificate. Legal complications prevented international transport. Instead, her cremated remains were buried at Fairhaven Memorial Park, Santa Ana, California. Her grave reads, Pamela Susan Morrison, 1946-1974, using Morrison as her surname, despite the fact they were never legally married. After Pamela's death, her parents inherited the Morrison estate. Morrison's parents contested this. In 1979, both families agreed to split estate earnings 50-50. Pamela Courson died at exactly the same age as Jim, 3 years later, with a needle beside her body and a heroin addiction. Morrison had reportedly fought against for years. The 27 Club claimed them both. Number 9. October 1970. You're drinking with number 3. In October 1970, at Barney's Beanery in Los Angeles, Jim Morrison made a prediction. Multiple witnesses documented. Jimi Hendrix died on September 18, 1970, at age 27. Janis Joplin died on October 4, 1970, also at age 27. Morrison was grieving Joplin. They had been friends, occasional lovers, and combatants. During one incident, Joplin struck Morrison over the head with a bottle of Southern Comfort, knocking him unconscious. Shortly after Joplin's overdose, Morrison told friends at Barney's Beanery, "You're drinking with number 3. That's right, number 3. He was explicitly placing himself as the third member of what would later be called the 27 Club. Hendrix was 1, Joplin was 2. Morrison predicted he would be 3. 8 months later, on July 3, 1971, Jim Morrison was found dead in a Paris bathtub at age 27. After Joplin's death, Morrison's drinking accelerated, his weight ballooned, his performances deteriorated. By December 1970, the Doors canceled remaining tour dates because Morrison had become too unreliable. 3 months later, he fled to Paris. 8 months after the Barney's Beanery prediction, Morrison fulfilled his own prophecy. Number 10, December 12th, 1970, the final concert, smashing the microphone through the stage. December 12th, 1970, 4 days after Morrison's 27th birthday. Girl, we couldn't get much high. Marked the Doors' final concert, with Jim Morrison performing live. The venue was The Warehouse in New Orleans. Multiple eyewitnesses described it as one of the worst performances ever witnessed. Morrison was slurring, rambling, barely present. He forgot lyrics, told bad jokes between songs, sat on the drum riser during Light My Fire instead of singing. One eyewitness said, he was so loaded he could barely stand up. He looked like a homeless person. Big bushy beard. Hair like he hadn't washed it in a month. I didn't recognize him until he started talking. The transformation from 1967 to 1970 was complete. The lean, shirtless sex symbol in leather pants, who defined the summer of love, had become a bearded, overweight drunk who could barely remember his own lyrics. Earlier that year, during the LA Woman sessions, Morrison was reportedly drinking 36 beers a day. Now he looked exactly like what he was, a dying alcoholic. At the end of the show, Morrison grabbed the microphone stand and smashed it repeatedly into the stage floor. He drove the stand completely through the wooden stage, leaving a hole. Promoter Don Fox witnessed it. He took the mic stand and started smashing it right into the stage floor. He's the only artist I've ever seen put a hole in the stage. Ray Manzarek later reflected, I could see Jim's spirit leave his body, even though he was still standing right there. After New Orleans, the remaining 3 Doors members met and agreed there was no point continuing to perform live. Remaining tour dates were canceled. Jim Morrison never performed on stage again. 3 months later, in March 1971, he left for Paris with Pamela. Less than 7 months after smashing the microphone. Through the stage in New Orleans, Morrison was found dead in a bathtub. He was 27 years old. 27 years, 5 years of fame, 1 sealed coffin. Light My Fire hit number 1, 6 albums, millions of records sold. Defined the psychedelic era, arrested on stage, banned from Ed Sullivan, convicted in Miami with no photographic proof, created the end. But the documented facts tell a darker story. Father was a senior commander during the Gulf of Tonkin. 28 cops, 100 photographs, 0 proof, maced backstage, arrested on stage, massive LSD trip, no autopsy, sealed coffin, 5 mourners. Marianne Faithfull's confession, 43 years later. Pamela dead at 27, a needle beside her body. You're drinking with number 3. The legend says Morrison was the Lizard King. The facts say he was. The admiral's son, who claimed his parents were dead, died in a bathtub and was buried in a sealed coffin. His girlfriend died 3 years later, at the same age, from the same drug. Nobody saw him placed in the ground. Père Lachaise Cemetery still draws fans to his grave. The 27 Club claimed Hendrix, Joplin, and Morrison within 10 months. Morrison predicted it in October 1970. 8 months later, he fulfilled it. His final concert ended with him smashing a microphone through the stage floor. That's the documented story. The admiral's son, who became the Lizard King, defied Ed Sullivan, was arrested on stage, performed on massive LSD, died in a sealed coffin at 27, and left more questions than answers. Which moment shocked you most? The sealed coffin with 5 mourners, Faithfull naming the dealer, Pamela at 27 with a needle, Miami, 28 cops and 0 proof? Comment below. And if you want the full story about what really happened inside that Paris apartment, the one detail even Doors insiders refuse to agree on. Subscribe! That's coming next.